What is up everyone, Barricade here and bringing you guys another part of Gears of War Bloodlines. So today's video I would like to conclude Gabe's part of the story. And essentially what happened in the last video at the very end was Gabe was very worried about Wyatt being gone. He hasn't heard anything from his brother ever since the explosion. So he's worried that his own brother may be dead. So now he has to push forward and fight the UIR to take back Knifespire. He ran through the emulsion cloud, and all he could feel was the burning sensation of the fumes going through his lungs. He rushed through, and the very first human being he saw was that of a UIR soldier. He plunged his retro blade through that man's chest, killing him, stealing his gas mask so he can try to breathe. But before he could put it on, another UIR soldier slashed at him with his machete. Gabe dodged it and shot the man straight in his abdomen with the retro, killing that man. Gabe took a brief moment to reach out and try to contact Wyatt again, hoping that his brother would reply. He was not given any response from his brother, so he tried again, but instead he was given a response from one of the pilots, a pilot by the name of Soroki, a young man, his very first mission in combat. Gabe asked him to help him, to please turn back to Knifespire. The boy was scared, but was listening to what Gabe had to say. Gabe gave him a plan, and Gabe waited for his response. All the response he got from the pilot was, "You're insane." And Gabe asked him simply if he would be able to do it. We'll find out what exactly Gabe's plan is in a moment here. But as he was speaking to the pilot and before he could get a response, he was attacked by another UIR soldier, a woman, that when she tackled him to the ground, he used the force of momentum to send her flying above him into another emulsion cloud field area. He looked for her after she landed, but he couldn't find her. The emulsion was too thick. He started screaming and asking if anyone was nearby that can help him. He tried to raise the comms again to speak to Soroki, but no response. After asking frantically if anyone could hear him, he got a response from Blair, and all she could say was, "Here," to let him know that she was nearby. The emulsion cloud was much too thick though, and he couldn't see her. He started to make his way up through Gaka Ridge towards the spire itself. It was covered in emulsion and fire, and it had a very ominous glow. As he was making his way, he could just feel the burning sensation of the emulsion going through his lungs once again, and he got scared because he started thinking of all the people that had been affected by emulsion fumes and how they would get rust lung. He compared himself to them, thinking that they were only getting small whiffs here and there of the emulsion and they got the disease, but he was here breathing it in over and over, and it grew him concerned. Luckily, he did find a gas mask from a UIR soldier, and he was able to put it on, and it gave him relief instantly. As he was making his way, he heard a scream, and it was the woman from before that had tackled him. She had tackled him again, and before he can realize, he was plummeting face first into the ground with the mask coming off. He was eating dirt, and he could feel a weird thudding come from his side. He realized that the woman was actually trying to stab him with her machete, but luckily it was only hitting armor. He pulled up instantly and pulled out his snub pistol and aimed it right at her. He shot. Instinctively, she blocked the bullet with her machete, but it hadn't really done anything. The bullet went straight through the machete and straight through her eye socket, killing her. Gabe got up and tried to see if his gas mask was still intact, but it was broken, and hers was damaged as well, seeing as he just put a bullet through her head. He decided that breathing emulsion was the least of his concerns right now, and he needed to push forward. As he was making his way through the emulsion cloud, he saw somebody, a shadow, appear before him, and it swung its lancer bayonet at him. He dodged it, and he realized that it was actually another COG soldier. He screamed, "Friendly! Friendly!" at the soldier, and realized that it was actually Blair. Blair helped him up to his feet, and she asked him, "Where the hell have you been?" And he says, "I'm trying to raise everyone on the comms, but no one is responding." She actually turns him around and looks at the back of his armor and tells him straight up, "Your comms are off, idiot." And he's like, "That's Lieutenant Colonel idiot to you," he tells her. And then apparently it turns out that when he got into the fight with that UIR soldier when she was trying to stab him, she damaged his transmitter, so he could not speak, but he could hear. And that's all he could do. So Blair jokingly says, well, I guess I'm in charge now, because she is technically second in command. Gabe openly tells her, yes, please let everyone know that I want everyone to run to the southern end of Gatka Ridge. She responds, why? And he says, please, just do it. I have a plan. And his plan is what he told the pilot Soroki that we have yet to see at this point. And we don't know exactly what he's up to, and Soroki never replied. So we don't know if this pilot is going to even be able to go through with this plan, if they're going to be able to succeed at it. Blair gestured Gabe to follow her through the yellow emulsion cloud, and as they did, thoughts came to Gabe's mind. He started thinking about Wyatt and where he had been when the torpedo hit the boats. Was he alive or was he dead? But he came to the conclusion that Wyatt must be gone at this point, that he must have died during the explosion. But he couldn't think about that right now. He had to focus. As he was making his way through, he could hear the frigates from the UIR sending out shells and explosions, shooting at something in the distance. But he realized that the blasts weren't actually hitting the island, nowhere near Gatka Ridge or anyone else. He didn't want to get his hopes high, but he realized that this might be a good sign. Unfortunately though, Gabe lost Blair in the emulsion cloud and ran into 4 UIR soldiers wearing gas masks and wielding Nasher shotguns. Gabe decided to engage them because they were chasing him and stalking them. He decided to get in close fast before they could use their shotguns. He rushed the first one with his machete, slicing it straight into the man's jaw and slamming him into another one, taking 2 out instantly. The third one pushed, but Gabe ran straight at him, shooting his pistol straight to the man's throat, killing him. The fourth one was ready though, and as Gabe tried to attack, the UIR soldier slid to the floor, hitting Gabe in his ankles, making him fall. When Gabe tried to get up and retaliate, the man hit Gabe's pistol out of his hand with his bushka. Gabe tried to fight back, but he hit Gabe directly in the chest with his bushka as well, again, causing Gabe to stagger and lose his breath. As he was laying there hurt, the UIR soldier revealed himself by taking off his gas mask, revealing that he is in fact the same bald officer from before. And he's definitely one of the leaders of the UIR because he's been leading the charge since the beginning. He told Gabe that he thought that Gabe was smart for trying to use the boats as a way to trick him, but that Gabe made one fatal mistake. That he knew that the cog wasn't going to be sitting around for 20 hours. He knew that Gabe and everyone is going to be attacking the island sooner because there's no way that the cog would leave an emulsion source for that long. Gabe had to sit there and watch as the UIR soldier gloated in his face, telling him that his plan had failed, that the cog were going to die, etc. But there was one thing that the man did not account for, and that is for Gabe's plan. Turns out that Soroki, the pilot that Gabe was trying to contact and told him a plan, did listen, and now he's following through with it. The plan was simply to crash his helicopter with his torpedo still attached into Knifespire itself. Gabe saw the helicopter flying directly to the spire, and once it hit, it exploded in a gigantic explosion with the torpedo. Luckily, Soroki evacuated with the parachute before it crashed. The spire itself on the island was completely obliterated. It said shrapnel and rocks everywhere, destroying trees, killing all the UIR soldiers that were inside of it, killing a lot of UIR soldiers that are around it, and just completely obliterating everything in the area. At this point, Gabe spoke with the leader of this UIR and told him that his plan failed because the UIR simply wants to take the emulsion, but Gabe wants to win. And that's where he miscalculated. The UIR soldier asked Gabe, "Do you know what you've just done?" Which Gabe replies, "Yes. It's going to take years for any army to dig out that emulsion, so neither one of them will be able to get that during this wartime." And he was okay with that, because now Knifespire was off the list of islands that the UIR would want to evade, because taking this emulsion would take too much time. When he explained this to the UIR soldier, the UIR soldier's eyes filled with rage and also resolve. He stared back at Gabe with pure anger and raised his comms to let his soldiers know, "Gatka Ridge is clear. Feel free to scorch it now. All of it." So now he's sending his soldiers to attack Gatka Ridge. the boats are going to be firing non-stop shells to bomb the entire area. After he places this order, it's essentially a one-on-one fight between Gabe and this man. The man stood there holding his bushka, empty with no grenades, but ready to use it like a club. He jabbed at Gabe. Gabe dodges and counters with a feint backhand strike. The man dodges. Gabe uses this as an opportunity to steal a knife from the man that he had placed at his ankle. When Gabe pulled it from the holster, he struck at the man with low strikes trying to take out his legs. The man dodged and struck down with the bushka right on his shoulder. It wasn't too strong, but it still sent a horrible strike of pain through his arm. Now on the ground, Gabe took the opportunity to lunge forward and stab the man straight in his stomach with the knife. The man pulled back in pain and saw that the knife was all the way up to the hilt in his stomach. The man pulled the knife out, flicking blood on the ground, and looked at Gabe and said, "You'll pay for that." He then threw the knife at Gabe. Gabe barely dodged, and it hit him in the cheek, causing a horrible gash on his face, causing him to bleed profusely. Before Gabe could react, the man approached Gabe, striking him straight in the throat with the bushka. This gave Gabe horrible pain and stunned him, and the man kept striking. He hit Gabe in the stomach, knocking him to the ground, standing on his head with his boot, pulling out the pistol that Gabe had from before, admiring it, and ready to kill Gabe. He told Gabe that even though he lost the battle with the emulsion, that he's going to win here. At this point, Gabe was dying. Everything was fading. But before he could go, he heard a voice. Wyatt's voice on the comms. "Gabe, are you there?" Wyatt said. "Come in." Wyatt sounded wounded, and he told Gabe that their plan had failed from before, when they tried to use the Corva helicopters to bomb the main battleship. It failed, and that Wyatt was going to be going through with Plan B, which was essentially to blow up the battleship from inside. But by doing this, Wyatt would be sacrificing himself. Wyatt was still alive, and he had made it inside the enemy's main battleship, and he was ready to pay the ultimate price. Gabe tried to speak to his brother and let him know to stop, just get away, live, but he couldn't. His comm was damaged. He could only hear, not speak. And what Wyatt had told Gabe was very sad. He told Gabe that he admired him and Oscar because Oscar and Gabe never once made Wyatt feel like he had to prove himself. And that's what he loved most about Oscar and Gabe. That's what he loved about his brothers, that they accepted him no matter what. And his last words were to give his best to Oscar, and that he hopes that this will change the tide of the battle. He then lit the ammunition room that the UIR battleship had, exploding it and taking out all the frigates around it, destroying all the main ships that the UIR had, freeing Gatka Ridge from being bombed. His sacrifice was immense, but very necessary. At this point, Gabe laid there under the man's boot, but when the explosion went off, the man lost his balance, and Gabe gained something else. Rage. Anger that his brother was gone because of this man. He had to stop him. With the last bit of energy he had, he twisted in a way to where he could kick the man straight in his knife wound. The UIR soldier screamed in agony and flew backwards. Gabe was still laying on the ground though, in pain, dizzy, and with no energy. Out of nowhere, Soroki, the pilot from before that crashed his helicopter into the spire, happened to meet up with Gabe. Gabe could tell that it was him simply because Soroki was still wearing all the wires and everything that a pilot wears after they jump out. Soroki ran straight to Gabe and helped lift him to his feet, which Gabe now faced the UIR soldier. Gabe walked towards the man, and he could feel the snub pistol from before on the ground. Gabe picked it up, and the UIR soldier rushed him, and within the last second while being tackled, Gabe pulled the trigger, and all Gabe could remember before passing out was the spray of red mist. Gabe awoke to Soroki dragging him by his collar. Gabe was concerned at first because he thought he had been captured by UIR soldiers, but it was just Soroki, and Soroki stated that their reinforcements were coming. Gabe grew scared and pulled himself to his feet thinking he meant UIR reinforcements, but Soroki stated no, COG reinforcements are here. Gabe was still dizzy and weakened, but was able to walk and met up with everyone at the beach. He saw Blair, and she was extremely happy to find him and that he's okay. But upon meeting her, Gabe passed out. Regardless of what Gabe had just gone through, it didn't stop his higher-ups from wanting to know exactly what had happened right away. He was pulled into a debriefing shortly after he arrived back at Vectis. He felt dead on his feet and was extremely tired, and his face stung from his knife wound. He was sporting a giant bandage on his face that Guillen had slapped on the way back to Vectis. He not only stood there before his personal leader, Phillips, the one who runs Vectis, but also Hoffman and Chairman Prescott on a video feed, ready to debrief him on everything that had happened. Prescott simply asked Gabe if any introduction was in order. Gabe replied, "No, Chairman Prescott," which Prescott replied with, "Okay, let's have it." So Gabe told him everything, about all their battles, about Wyatt's death, about how they lost the emulsion, how they defeated the UIR, and how they escaped. There was a huge silence in the office, and no one spoke, until Hoffman broke the silence. He told Gabe that what he achieved at Knifespire was remarkable, and that he was sorry about his brother. Gabe's mind was flooded of thoughts of Wyatt and their childhood, and sadness came over him as he thought about his brother's death. His thoughts were interrupted, though, by Prescott asking him about Wyatt, simply asking, "Brother? I don't remember you having a brother. None of the files state this." This annoyed Gabe, so Gabe replied to Prescott with, "I don't care what the files say. He was my brother. You might want to look back at your files, Chairman." Gabe said this with as much anger and insolence as he could, but Prescott remained unimpressed and got back to the point. "So about the emulsion," Prescott said. He asked Gabe what exactly happened and why it was lost. Who gave him the order to collapse the mountain and bury that emulsion source? Gabe simply stated nobody did. And Prescott got furious and stated that his decision may have costed the COG the war. And now he wants Gabe to go back to Knifespire and dig it out and get that emulsion at any cost, and to give Gabe anything and everything that he would need, whether it be soldiers, mining tools, machinery, etc. Gabe was going to be put back at Knifespire and get that emulsion. Gabe replied with, "Like hell I will." Prescott simply stated, "Enough of this, you have your orders," and he signed off. After this, Gabe asked Phillips if he had permission to be dismissed. She said no, and started yelling at him that he's been disobeying orders, that he's being crazy, and that the deputy chairman of the entire army just gave him an order and he better listen to it. Gabe exploded with fury and anger, stating that he no longer cared, that he was going to resign, that people have died because of him, that it's his fault, that his brother is dead, that all these other soldiers are dead, and he can't handle it anymore. Phillips' response was simply that this is war, and you better listen, you better shape up, and they entered a screaming match. But Hoffman stopped them, and he asked if he could have a minute alone with Gabe, that he'll straighten him out. After Phillips left the office, Hoffman sat down and had a very straightforward talk with Gabe. And the part I like about this is that Hoffman didn't come at him with authority or anger or anything. All he had for Gabe was empathy. And he explained to Gabe that he understood how much Wyatt meant to him. which Gabe attested to, but Hoffman stated that Wyatt would always talk about Gabe and Oscar all the time, and that spoke volumes about Gabe and how great of a soldier he is. That what he did at Knifespire was remarkable, that he was able to find a way to gain a victory regardless of how bad the situation was. And he wanted to know why Gabe was truly resigning. And the thing I really liked is that he tells Gabe, forget about rank and everything right now. We're just two men. Tell me what's bothering you. Why are you going to resign? And Gabe opened up. And Gabe simply told him that with all the soldiers that have died because of him and everything, it's just getting to him way too much. And that Wyatt was the type of soldier that he was able to go in, do a mission, and regardless of what happened, he was able to brush off any type of sadness, any type of anger, and do what he needed to do. But Gabe himself cannot do that. He cares too much, and that's what's bringing him down. And Gabe mentions the fact to Hoffman that the only reason why he was even there at the islands to begin with was because he requested to be transferred there to avoid these type of situations. He already had enough death on his hands before, and after many battles, he requested to switch to Vectis to avoid that. And it just came right to him anyways, and he's in the same exact situation as he was before. Hoffman stated that no matter what he does, he basically begs Gabe to not resign. Whether you request another change of scenery, whether you request to do something else regarding Knifespire, no matter what you do, please do not resign, Hoffman tells him. Gabe sat there and thought about it for a moment and simply tells Hoffman, I need to speak to someone else before I decide. Hoffman was worried because he knows that if Gabe decides to resign anyways, that Phillips could simply send Gabe to the brig, and there would be nothing that Hoffman could do at that point. The next thing we see is Gabe talking to Oscar through a live comm, and Gabe tells Oscar everything about how their brother died, what their mission was, everything. Gabe didn't care if any of the information he told Oscar was classified or not. After Gabe explained the story, Oscar simply stood up and walked up to a cabinet, opening it with the key he had, and pulled out a bottle of whiskey and started drinking. Gabe was surprised because Oscar actually had sworn off alcohol entirely. Thoughts of their past flooded their minds, where Gabe thought of the time when they were young kids living in the orphanage, and they stole a bottle of whiskey. They all took turns drinking it, and while Gabe didn't really get too drunk, Oscar and Wyatt stayed up all night drinking and laughing. The very next day, Oscar couldn't look at any source of light and missed class because of how hungover he was. At that point, he sworn to never drink again, until now. Oscar simply stated that yes, that he did sworn off drinking alcohol after what had happened when they were young, but what was the better way to honor Wyatt at this point? That was one of the last memories that he felt really close to Wyatt, and he felt like getting drunk somehow honored him. And then Oscar got angry and started asking Gabe, who gave the order for our brother to do that? Who gave the order to sacrifice himself? Was it that bastard Hoffman? Which Gabe had to tell Oscar, no, it was me. I gave him the order. At that point, Oscar grew very angry and just stared back at Gabe in a really weird, awkward silence. But after a while, he let it go and told Gabe that Wyatt wouldn't want them to mourn for him, that he would want them to push forward, and he told Gabe to not have a funeral for him, that Wyatt would hate that. Gabe wasn't able to ask Oscar whether he should resign or reassign somewhere else, because at this point Oscar was drunk and angry and furious, and he wasn't really someone he could get advice from. So Gabe decided to end the conversation and go back to his office and contemplate this next step in his life. In his office, he was using a chair that he's always used, a really old, beat-up one that always would squeak, that always would feel very uncomfortable. And for some reason, that chair seemed to act almost as a metaphor for what is going on. He picked it up and thought to himself, do I smash it or do I leave it alone? What should I do? Then a third thought came into his mind. something that didn't come to him before until that moment. He decided to repair the chair, and he spent the day fixing the legs, fixing the cushion, and essentially restoring the chair to a pristine condition. At this point, he realized that he didn't want to be in any form of the battles. He wanted to just fix things. And now he was resigned to the motor pools. The final act of Gabe's story is simply that of a reassignment paper that reads as follows. Memorandum of Record for Lieutenant 184729-855R9-LM Diaz Gabriel. Subject: Revision of rank. Transfer of assignment. 1. Previous rank and assignment: Lieutenant Colonel, Vectis Naval Base. Assigned to COG Army 7th Brigade in Vectis Joint Task Force. Phillips Janus commanding. 2. New rank and assignment: Sergeant Aldair Army Depot. Assigned to 12th Mechanics Division, Motor Pool, Bowden Samuel commanding. 3. Reason: Self-demotion, personal. 4. Effective immediately. Signatures: Diaz Gabriel, Phillips Janus, Bowden Samuel. So at this point, this is the very end of Gabe's story that this novel shows. Shortly after this, he went to be in the motor pools, which later led to him being in the story that we saw in Gears Tactics, where he fought Ukon alongside of Sid Redburn and Michaela Dorn. After this, he did leave the COG Army, and eventually had a daughter with Reyna, which is Kate. He was a loving father until his untimely death due to rust lung, most likely caused by his battles at Knifespire. So once again, that is the end of Gabe's story that we know before Gears Tactics. Now in the next video, I'm going to be talking about Kate's reaction to this whole story. If you guys don't remember, in the first act of this novel, Kate wanted to know about her father, which Hoffman went behind the COG's back to get this file because it was very encrypted and held deep within the COG's database. For some reason, they tried to hide this from Kate, but Hoffman didn't care, and he gave it to her. And that was the whole entire story that I just went through for Act 2 of the novel. Starting in the next video, we're going to be starting Act 3 of the novel that talks about Kate's reaction and what happens after she finds out about Gabe's story. This part of the novel is a lot shorter and will not have as many videos. If you guys like this video, please definitely hit that like button and subscribe and tell me what you guys think about Gabe's story in the Gears of War Bloodlines novel. Anyways guys, thanks for watching and take it easy. Thanks for watching this video. If you want to see my most recent Gears of War video, hit that link on the left. If you want to see any of my other content, hit that link on the right. Thanks for watching guys.